Lesson number 6: the 5 biggest mistakes men make in relationships. Back in 1989, I went through a divorce, and I'll never forget the feeling that I had as a result of that divorce. I felt like a complete failure. I had worked really hard to make my marriage work, and when it failed, it was pretty painful. And the first words out of my mouth were, I'm never going to get married again. And I think that's what most men think. Because when we're in those situations and what we're really experiencing is pain, it's easy to say things that we're going to do to keep us from experiencing that pain again. And without question, divorces are painful. Relationship breakups are painful. Men generally won't speak openly about that pain, but it's the fact. When you lose something that you really cared about, it hurts. That's just the way it is. And so after my divorce, I kind of isolated myself and chose not to be in relationship for a few months. And then after a few months passed, I decided that at least I wanted some companionship. So I attempted to start relationships with people. And the bad news is, I hadn't really dealt with the pain of my divorce and the unresolved emotional issues that came as a result of that. And so by me trying to start relationships, it was virtually impossible. Because when I'd get into a relationship, there was this amazing pattern. And the pattern was this: the relationship would last approximately 3 weeks max. And the women were all saying the same thing. And this is what they would tell me: I care too much about you to stay in this relationship. Now think about that for a moment. I care too much about you to stay in this relationship. Which at the time made absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. If you care about somebody, why would you be leaving them? And so I struggled with that for a while and got really frustrated with relationships again, and stopped even attempting to pursue a relationship for several more months. But then I decided, I really wanted to at least be in a relationship again. So I had actually started doing some workshops, and I had started to understand a little bit about the dynamics of what was causing my relationships to fail. And I was in this workshop one time, and there was this woman that I met. Just an amazing woman, just great. And I was talking to her about relationships, and I was actually having somewhat of a pity party, because I was telling her, you women say you want a good man, and I'm a good man, but yet women keep leaving me, and I don't understand what you women want. And this woman said something to me that literally shook my world. And it was one of the most powerful lessons that I'd ever received. And she said this: she looked at me and she says, Michael, if one person calls you a jackass, you probably shouldn't worry about it. But if 2 or more do, you might want to get a saddle. And I looked at her and go, what? And she says, Michael, think about it. You keep talking about how all these women are leaving you. She says, but have you noticed that you're the only common denominator in all of your relationships? So maybe the problem isn't with the women. Maybe the problem is with you. And for the first time in my life, I really understood that relationships are never about the other person. Relationships are really about us, which was about me. And so when she said that, I knew, number one, that she was just being honest with me, but I really listened to what she said, and I really took it to heart, and I really paid attention. And so I began asking myself deeper questions about what it was about me that was causing my relationships not to work out. And that was pretty challenging, because it takes a lot of courage to be that honest with ourselves, to look at what it is that we're doing that's causing relationships not to work out. And I know, generally speaking, as men, what we tend to do is point fingers at women. But the key is we must be willing to look within our own hearts and minds to figure out what it is about us that's keeping us from creating great relationships. And so this has been a pretty long process for me of discovering who I am and why my relationships wasn't working out, and it takes effort. And just like I talked about in the second chapter or the second lesson about doing your inner work, how important that is. Because you got to really understand yourself before you can figure out how to be in relationships. So with that said, I want to share the 5 biggest mistakes I believe men make in relationships. And again, this is the result of my own personal experience. And obviously I've read tons and tons and tons of books on relationships. But most importantly, this is just lessons that I've learned and sharing with other men and the radio show that I do and just some things that I've learned. And so I want you to really pay attention to these 5 lessons and see if they resonate with you.